you guys casting in the office? Give me a feel for it.
Mostly below elbow. That's it.
Mostly below elbow?
Yeah.
And is it mostly like stable radius fractures that aren't gonna swell or have gone past their swelling kind of thing?
Parents who don't believe that the brace is enough for a buckle. Yeah.
Despite the myriad studies that show that that's true. Yeah, I think I should sit. If I sit, can you guys still see me? So again, we always in our office put these on with a holder. So somebody's holding the arm, making sure they don't move. A lot of the time we are doing it for a distal radius fracture that has had a reduction, and almost always those want to come off radially and dorsally. So to counteract that, you do a thumb hold as you're putting it on, and you give it a mold. For your purposes, I don't think it matters that much. So you don't have to stress about it the way we do. You can just have somebody hold the fingers because it's a lot easier to work around someone's fingers. So I'm gonna pretend like that's what we're at. So Bree, cut a little hole in the stockinette right there. And you just want a little bit of a nick because it gets bigger as you put it on. And notice that she left a big chunk of stockinette here. I do fold over the top like I do, where you make a second hole.
Nope.
She's gonna show you something different, but I do a thing where I cut a second hole and fold it over. She's gonna show you her way.
I can show both. It will be alright.
And gross ocean stuff.
So one would be kind of go around the thumb and the wrist. You just use a little piece. You have your padding. I put a hole in there.
Oh, that's cool.
And then come through here, just the two. I tend to pull up a little bit, so I'm not getting a whole lot.
You don't want a lot of padding where the fracture is, because especially if you're gonna put a mold on it, it'll make it hard. So you get layers of padding where you're gonna fold it over. So like here's your other place, you get a few extra layers. One of the errors with these casts is coming too short, so you wanna bring your padding basically to your elbow pit, right? Antecubofossa. And at the end of this, I should be able to make a fist. This is important, especially with older kids.
Cast tape.
It
Should be in that gray bucket, or it was at one point.
So you guys can get the other side on this.
Your favorite
So she's got some padding around the thumb. This all dissolves eventually, but it's nice to have it there while you're doing the fiberglass. But
You also don't want to squeeze these.
You don't squeeze it?
Some people fold, make it pretty. I twist.
I'm gonna do this with my arm.
So I just twist. I'm pushing here. I'm not like diving in. You don't want that right there where they'll get another sore. Don't pull heavy there.
You just have to pull enough on fiberglass to take the bias out of it. You don't wrap it real tight. But to get it to do what you want, you have to pull on it a little bit. So now it's still tall. There's my elbow. So it's still tall and I can still bend my elbow, but it's not too short.
So you fold it over the stocking and the padding.
Yeah, we do like 1 or 2 layers. It's sort of when you run out of your first roll of fiberglass, really.
So when I do this part, I pull it down.
This is a good trick. I like this.
You can fold up
It's
over
better,
here.
it's better than my trick.
Or
Can you
you
do
could,
that again? I was looking down.
yeah. So
My eyes are closed.
pull it down here, here, and then you just kind of cross over.
So that's why you leave yourself enough room with the stockinette up here.
What's holding it there? Is it just
Her
Just
hands.
stick into this right now.
Okay.
You can cut right here, but you run a risk if you cut it too big, then you expose all your padding. Another thing is if you go and you're like, oh, I cut it too short, you could come this way a little bit. Just make sure it's not super tight. Give me a wrinkle.
I'm like thinking I'm doing this. It's weird. It's a good illustration of what happens when you move, when you have fiberglass on though, right? Look,
Yeah.
right, I'll do that. So you need 3 passes through the thumb at a minimum. Teenagers will break it anyway.
To make a huge water mess on your carpet.
So she's already got 1 pass, so now she's gonna do the second and third. So you cut it like 1/4 of an inch, come through. anchor it at the base of the thumb again. Oh, you do too, okay.
Just like it sticks to each other.
Yeah.
This one, if it's not big and bulky, you can fold it over so it's not sharp on them.
If you fold back too much though, right here, you'll lose strength in the cast and they'll break through your mold around your thumb, so you need some right here.
And then you just don't want to end where you would have to kind of mold so they can't pull it off.
Can I sign this out?
So this right here is not gonna bug me, believe it or not. Like, this doesn't matter. As long as I can fully abduct my thumb, which I can, it's fine. And you can see in the front, I can fold my fingers over, right? And on the side, and I can make a fist, right?
Yeah, you're way low on that lateral side. That's great on that older
Yeah,
side.
you
Yeah.
need to make sure you're below that metacarpal knuckle back weight.
Yeah,
so
right
you
here.
can-
And when you're doing this, that's on the far side of you. Like, I always find myself a little high over there, and people are over there yanking it down for me. So, yeah, look at me making wrinkles, guys. Bad news.
Do you want to cut that off before it dries, or do you want me to grab the press?
Any questions about this? So 3 passes through the thumb. Just make sure you pad the thumb in a way that you can remember.
Would you ever do a pass like that if you had buckles on both thumbs that were stable?
You can still do a brace for both bone buckles.
So then when would be the purpose of doing this? Just when parents want to cast?
For a buckle fracture, if they want to cast. We do these for literally every other wrist fracture.
Like displaced radius. That they,
Yeah. Salter to disarray fractures, we see a lot of those.
So we're gonna send all of those to you anyway, right? So are there any things that we would do in clinic that would require this short arm cast?
I don't think anything you guys do requires it, but like you said, if there's somebody who comes in with a buckle and they just aren't hearing that the brace is really the right thing to do, this is the next thing.
I kind of feel like most teenage boys, they won't keep the brace on, so I'm like, you're a terrible patient, so you're probably getting a cast.
Yeah,
Because at least you can't, that's harder to take off.
yeah. The reality is with a true buckle fracture, if you do nothing, they do okay. That's the Force trial that just came out of the UK. They wrapped them with a soft bandage and it seems like it works fine.
I don't know if you've met Cammie's boys.
Aflac is gonna kick me off.
Yeah.
They're like, you're maxed out, you're in place.
So, yeah, I mean, I get it. I feel the same way about teenage boys, and if I'm worried that they're not gonna wear it, then I absolutely will cast stuff that I don't normally cast. So, yeah, reasonable. Or if they wanna play football, right?
Yeah.
Or soccer. I think if you're gonna finish out a soccer season with a buckle fracture, you probably ought to cast them.
And are you okay, how long after they're in the cast to go back to resume, like to play soccer or whatever?
I let them go right away.
No
Yeah.
waiting period.
Nope.
It's gonna be good news for lots of kids.
Yeah.
Try not to like yank you all over the place.
You, from a billing standpoint, do you bill it the same way, whether you put them in a splint or you put them in a cast?
It
Other
is.
than to the casting itself, but like, is it still the same level visit?
No, it's one of the reasons, yeah, it's a great question, actually. So if you put a cast on, you automatically fall into fracture care, right? And so fracture care for 25600, which would be this, is about, in our office, $690, $700 roughly. It's a lot of money, yeah, that's what we think. So if you do a buckle fracture with a removable brace and it's one visit, one brace, and they don't come back, which is what most people are doing because you don't need to come back, you don't need follow-up for that, then that bills at about $250, $300. So it's anywhere from a third to a half as much.
Well, and if they come see us, we're like a half of that, right? We're billing it like a level 4 visit.
Yeah. So yes, the cost is significantly different to not bill fracture care for those.